Academy, Hyderabad Branch. I am Swetha. Today I am here to teach some of the most important science and technology PYQs. Whereas the first question of the day is athlete's foot. So here the term athlete's foot, it is a disease which is caused by which of the type of microorganism. So first and foremost, this athlete's foot is actually caused by a fungus, and to be specific, it is caused by a group of fungal organisms called the dermatophytes. So these dermatophytes are responsible for causing this particular disease called the athlete's foot. And why the name of this disease has been given as athlete's foot? Because this particular fungal organisms were greatly responsible for causing the fungal infection to the foot of a human, and also it will cause the itching, readiness, and also it will damage the foot of a person who got affected by this fungal organism. So that's why we call it as the athlete's foot. Whereas that of in the same way the group of bacteria which were responsible for causing the different bacterial diseases will the specific one being that of streptococcus. In case of the fungus, it is dermatophytes. If we talk about the protozoans, these protozoans are nothing but these are the single celled microorganisms which were greatly responsible for causing diseases which were transmitted through the contaminated food and water. Then followed by these nematodes. Nematodes are nothing but these are the small worm like organisms which were greatly responsible for causing the disease, and also these nematodes will greatly affect the different intestinal parts, and these nematodes, the diseases which were caused by these nematodes, and these nematodes will be transmitted from one person to another person through that of contaminated food and again contaminated water. So as for the given question, that is the athlete's foot, it is a disease which is caused by the fungus, and to be specific, a group of fungal organisms which are called the dermatophytes. So B is the correct statement. Followed by epiphytes are plants which depend on other plants for. First and foremost, you have to understand the nature of these epiphytic organisms. These epiphyte organisms are the normal, just like other organisms which were greatly rely on the big trees for its mechanical support. For example, it is a big tree and let it be, it is the other branch of the tree. On this particular branch, these epiphytic plants, epiphytes are nothing but they are also plants, they attach themselves with the roots to that of the stem of or to the branch of these big trees in order to get the mechanical support from these host trees, and these epiphytes will seek only the mechanical support, whereas only mechanical support from the host plants, whereas it will get its air and also it will going to get its water and nutrients through that of dew, rain, and they will absorb the water and nutrients through its specialized roots which were called the spongy roots. These spongy roots greatly responsible for the absorption of water and nutrients, and they parasitize these host plants only for the mechanical support but not to cause any harm or damage to these host plants. If you see here the term, the epiphytes are plants which depend on other plants for the mechanical support. It is not for the food and it is not for the shade, it is not for the water. They are going to get the water required for their body through that of their spongy roots which were the specially adapted roots from the air and also from the humid environment and also from the rain and dew. So it is the mechanical support is the correct statement, because for which these epiphytes greatly depend on the other host plants. Then followed by which one of the following organisms can serve as the biofertilizers for the rice crops. First and foremost, you have to understand this particular term biofertilizer. What do you mean by this particular term biofertilizer refer to? If you cut down this particular term, bio refer to living organism, whereas the fertilizer, that means which provides nutrients. So here it is the living organisms which itself provides nutrients. We will call it as the biofertilizers, and the best example of these kinds of biofertilizers in case of the rice fields includes the blue-green algae, which we'll call it as also the cyanobacteria. So blue-green algae or that of the cyanobacteria, they act as the biofertilizers in the rice fields, and how they perform and how they act as the biofertilizer in the rice plants. It is in the rice crop, we will use this blue-green algae as a biofertilizer, and it has the capability of capturing and also fixing the atmospheric nitrogen. So in such way it captures and also fixes the atmospheric nitrogen and provides the required nitrogen nutrition to that of rice plants. So in such way, so because of using this biofertilizer, that is this blue-green algae, in order to provide nitrogen requirements of the rice crop, we no need to provide urea anymore. So in order to overcome the usage of this particular chemical fertilizer urea, we can follow this particular biofertilizer which is called the blue-green algae, which is also known as the cyanobacteria. So blue-green algae is the correct statement. Then followed by phytotron, it is a facility of, here it is talking about this particular term phytotron. This phytotron is nothing but it is a facility of growing and also developing the plants in a controlled environment. That means providing the required temperature, required humidity, required oxygen, carbon dioxide and the other gases, and also the required light and water. That means providing all the required environmental factors in a controlled manner in a particular facility is called as that of the phytotron. So here according to that of the given statements, growing plants under disease-free conditions. It is not talking about the disease-free conditions, but it is talking about the control conditions. Then followed by conserve endangered species of plants. Then followed by grow plants under control conditions. It is directly a correct statement. So option C is the correct statement. Then followed by, here the soft drinks such as colas contain significant quantities of which of the following chemical? First and foremost, these colas and these different kinds of soft drinks consists of an alkaloid which is called the caffeine. This caffeine will be used in these kinds of soft drinks such as colas in order to promote and also in order to promote the alertness and also reduce the fatigue instantly. So in order to promote the alertness and also in order to reduce the fatigueness, the manufacturers use this particular alkaloid that is called the caffeine in different soft drinks like cola. So here the direct statement, that is option A, is the correct statement, that is caffeine. Followed by canola, refer to a special type of oil seed mustard variety. Here this canola is nothing but it is a mustard variety which is bred for human consumption. The main characteristic of these varieties are that of. So first and foremost, we all know this mustard is an oil seed crop, and in this particular oil seed crop of mustard, the scientists have developed a particular variety called the canola. And the reason for the production of this particular variety is they have reduced the oleic acid and reduced this particular fat in this particular mustard in order to produce the canola. Why? This oleic acid is harmful because the exposure of the human body to this particular oleic acid promotes different harmful effects in the human body. So in order to reduce that scientists have come up with a new variety that is called the canola, and they have developed this canola in such a way in which this consists of very less amount of oleic acid, or it has a very less content of erucic acid. Sorry, it is not oleic acid, but it is actually erucic acid. So here, so option D is the correct statement, which is a direct one, which talks about that oil has a very low erucic acid. Then followed by which one of the following is a useful functional association between fungi and the roots of the higher plants? For example, the higher plants are nothing but, for example, you will take a tree and a tree has different roots, and here the fungal association between the fungi and roots, we will call it as the mycorrhizal association. And why we call it as the mycorrhizal association, why we have given this particular name? Here if you separate this particular name, here the myco referred to fungi, whereas the rhiza, that means it is greatly talking about the roots. So it is the association between the fungi and again the roots, that is called the mycorrhizal association between the fungi and again the roots of the higher plants. And how the fungus will going to help these kinds of trees? This fungus will going to cling to the roots of these higher plants, and this fungi which has the large and the extensive hyphae, in order to grab and also in order to extract a lot of water and nutrients from the deep depths of the soil. So in such way this fungi helps to provide the water and nutrients to the plant. In the same way, in return, plants provides carbohydrates for the survival of this fungi. So in such way both of them get benefit in this particular symbiotic association. So here according to the given statements, it is the mycorrhiza is the association between the fungus and again the roots of the higher plants. If you see the remaining ones, here the lichen is the association between the algae and fungi. So the correct answer with regarding to this one is option D, that is the mycorrhizae. Then followed by ergotism is due to the consumption of which of the following? This ergotism is nothing but it is a fungal contamination of different grains. For example, there are different kinds of cereal grains are present, and these ergots are nothing but these ergots are nothing but these are the secretions of a particular fungi that is called the Claviceps purpurea. This Claviceps purpurea fungi is responsible for the production of the ergots. These ergots are also called as the sclerotial bodies, and the secretion of this fungus will lead to the formation of ergots, or that of we will call it as the sclerotial bodies, and these ergots or sclerotial bodies mimic the different grains and contaminate different grains. So the consumption of these contaminated grains will lead to a disease that is called the ergotism. So if you see here, the option A is the correct one, which is directly says this ergotism is due to the consumption of contaminated grains which were contaminated with the ergots or that of the sclerotial bodies which were produced through the secretion of a particular fungus called Claviceps purpurea. Followed by which one of the following types of microorganisms are most widely used in the industries? In industries, different kinds of microorganisms are utilized. So here it is the bacteria which is greatly used for the fermentation process, whereas the microalgae, this microalgae will be greatly useful in the production of biofuels. Then followed by fungi. Fungi, the best example that how fungi will be utilized in the industries include the production of penicillin. So in such way all these organisms, that is the bacteria, microalgae and again the fungi, all these types of microorganisms are greatly responsible and also greatly used in different processes in industries. So option D is the correct statement. Followed by you have to match the list 1 with that of the list 2. So here in the list 1 they have given about the outcome of a flower and again the outcome of a particular part of a plant, whereas here in the list 2 it has given the input. So here first and foremost, before getting into this match, you have to understand how the different flower parts will turn into different fruitful results. So for example, if you see, this is a flower. This particular flower consists of and gynoecium, that is the female part, as well as that of the androecium. This androecium consists of the anthers in which these anthers you will get to see the pollen grains. So after the fertilization, here this is the ovary, whereas inside this ovary there were small nodule like structures called the ovules. And as soon as the fertilization took place within a particular flower, the ovary turns into a fruit, whereas that of the fertilized ovules turns into the seeds. And during the process of production of the fruit with these seeds, the different other parts, that is the petals and again the sepals will going to wither off. So in such way, after the fertilization, the ovary will turns into fruits, whereas that of the ovules will turns into that of seeds. And also if you will see here, the different substances will act as a storage structures. For example, where will the process of photosynthesis will takes place, whereas this process of photosynthesis will takes place in the chlorophyll of leaf, whereas and the result of this particular photosynthesis is the production of carbohydrate, that is called the starch. And where you will get to see this starch, you will see this starch in the leaf, whereas in a particular plant during its vegetative stage or during its tender stage, we will call it as the stem, and later this stem will going to grow and turns into wood with bark. So these are the different modifications and the transformations that will takes place in the different parts of the particular tree or that of plant and again a flower. So here the ovary turns into a fruit, whereas that of the ovule turns into that of seeds, and starch will be stored in the leaf after the process of photosynthesis, and the stems will turns into wood and bark. So if you see here the different statements, the fruit is the resultant of ovary, right? So it is ovary, and the seeds are the result of ovule, then followed by wood is the result of stem, then followed by starch will be stored in leaf. So it is 4, 1, 3, 2. So option B is the correct statement of this question. Followed by, which one of the following statements regarding starch and again the cellulose are incorrect? So while reading the question, it is very important to understand whether in the question they are asking a correct statements or that of the incorrect ones. So here the question is, which of the following is an incorrect statement with regarding to starch and again the cellulose? If you closely observe, both the starch and the cellulose, both of them were observed within a plant, whereas the starch will act as a reserve of food material, that means which consists of the glucose, whereas the cellulose will act as the structural component of a cell wall. And also this starch and again cellulose, both of them are the polysaccharides. Here from here we are saying it is a polysaccharide. So here from the name itself, poly referred to the repetition of a particular substance, and the repetition of which particular substance, that is called the glucose. And the repetition of this glucose again and again will lead to the production of a polysaccharide, and one form of polysaccharide is called the starch and the other form being that of the cellulose, whereas the starch acts as a reserve of food material, whereas that of the cellulose acts as a structural component of a cell wall. So here if you see the different statements, both of them are of plant origin, which is a correct statement, then followed by both of them are the polymers, which is also a correct statement. That means here the polymers refer to repetition of a particular substance, and the repetition of which particular substance, that is the repetition of glucose. So in such way it will form a chain, we will call it as a polymer. So B is also a correct statement, both of them will give color with iodine. First and foremost, in the color test, the starch will going to give a blue black color in the color test with iodine, whereas that of the cellulose doesn't give any particular significant color in its test with the iodine. So but it has mentioned that both of them will give color with the iodine. Only starch will give color, whereas the cellulose doesn't give any kind of color. So C is going to be an incorrect one. So both of them are made of glucose molecules. It is a correct statement, as I told you before. It is a polymer, and this polymer is made of different small substances, that is called the glucose. So here all of them are correct except the option C. So C is the incorrect statement. Followed by living organisms require at least 27 elements, of which 15 are metals. So among these, those required in major quantities includes, usually plant requires the different nutrients in the inorganic form, and those requirement basis, on the basis of the requirement, will segregate all those nutrients into major and again the minor. So here the major includes the sodium, potassium, calcium and again magnesium. So among the given ones, so here it is definitely not the molybdenum, right? Then followed by again definitely not the manganese, they are the actual minerals. This manganese is a actual metallic mineral. Then followed by potassium, sodium, magnesium and calcium. It is a correct statement. How potassium will be helpful in the growth of the plant? It is because the potassium will provide the osmotic balance, and also in the same way the sodium also provides the osmotic pressure in the plant. In the same way the magnesium will will acts as a structural component in the chlorophyll molecule. Then followed by the calcium. Calcium will greatly helpful in the teeth and again the bone formation. So in such way all these four acts as the major nutrients and required in greater quantities. That's why we will call it as the major minerals, and or that of the major elements which were required by the plants. So option C is the correct statement. Followed by, it is possible to produce the seedless tomato fruits. So first and foremost, if you see the particular term seedless, this seedless fruits can be produced in two ways. In one way, through a process of called parthenocarpy, and the other way through spraying different growth promoting substances called the gibberellins or auxins. And how these seedless fruits will be produced? In case of this kind of parthenocarpy, here the ovary will turns into that of the fruit without that of fertilization. So usually this is a flower and this is going to be this is the ovary, and inside you will get to see the small ovules. So here this parthenocarpy process, it is a process in which from the ovary the fruit will be produced without the fertilization of these ovules. That's why only, right, we do not get seeds. The seeds is a result of fertilization, right? So here the fertilization doesn't take place. So because of that, the fruit that has been produced doesn't consist of the seeds. It is a basic one, right? So that process is called the parthenocarpy, that is the fruit production without the fertilization is called the parthenocarpy. In the same way, if we spray these kinds of growth promoting substances, that means the gibberellins or that of the auxins, if you spray these substances on the flowers, then automatically the ovary will turn into a fruit. So these two are the most important ways for the production of seedless fruits. So if you see the different statements, applying trace elements in tomato fruits, it is not the trace elements, then followed by spraying mineral solution on plants, then followed by spraying hormones on flowers, which is a direct statement. So option C is the correct statement. So here the spraying of hormones on flowers, and what it is actually talking about, the gibberellins or that of auxins. Then followed by, here it is again talking about in order to match different physiological processes with that of different cell organelles. That means in which of these cell organelles you will get to see these kinds of physiological processes, and where do the photosynthesis will takes place? The photosynthesis will takes place in the chloroplast of a cell, right? So here for the first one, it is the second, it is A referred to 2, where is that of mineral uptake, and mineral uptake is through that of the plasma membrane, because the plasma membrane, which is also called as the selective membrane which is responsible for the selective uptake of only minerals, or that of for the selective uptake of only required nutrients. So it is 1, then followed by respiration. It is the mitochondria, everyone knows, right? Because the mitochondria which is responsible for the production of ATP, which will also call it as the powerhouse of the cell. Then followed by protein synthesis, which will take place by the ribosome. So it is 2, 1 and 3, 4. So option C is the correct statement, that is 2, 1, 3, 4. Then followed by which one of the following is a modified stem? See, first and foremost there are different kinds of stems, and again the roots will develop themselves into different vegetables. So if you see, the carrot is the modification of root. In the same way, sweet potato is a modification of root. Where is that of the coconut? It is the modification, and also this coconut is a fruit. Then followed by potato. Potato is the modification of the stem, because that's what we will call it as the tubers. These tubers, for example, if you see, this is a potato which consists of the small nodes, we will also call it as the eyes. If you cut these kinds of small eyes or the nodes, and if you sow them in the soil, then you will get to see the production of the potatoes inside the soil. So here these tubers will act as the stems, and through stem modification you will get to see these kinds of potato production. So option D is the correct statement, which is the modified stem. I think the lecture is informative. Thank you.